Hello everyone. Today we are going to look at the pose library in Blender 3.0. Now, Blender's always had, or not always, but it had a pose library before. And if you look on the right hand side, there's a pose library there. But it never saved images, and it could have been better. So there are two pose libraries. I do have a video tutorial on the original pose library, but in Blender 3.0 we have a new pose library, which is here, and I'm going to go over how to quickly create poses in your pose library. So I'm working on speech gestures. I'm gonna update. If you're a Second Life person, I'm gonna update my speech gestures for Second Life and try and make them a lot faster. So this is the perfect thing to use the speech gestures or the pose library for. Now, there's actually two parts to the pose library. And the pose library is kind of separate from the whole library, the whole asset library. It's all in one, but it works slightly differently because you get this animation tab, which gives you access to the library. Now, the actual asset library, I'm going to just fork off a window here. And where is it? Asset browser right there. So we have no animation or poses in this library, but we could go get them from other libraries. So I could go into another library and bring it into this asset and this asset browser and use it here. But we're going to show you how to create your own in your scene so you can use for something like this. Facial expressions, things like that, hand poses are all perfect things to use in a pose library on top of, full out poses. But we're going to look at the face today, and one of the things that's very key to the pose library is the camera. So if we hit 0 on the number pad, you get the camera view, and in its current position, it's not really useful for our facial poses. So we need to change this. So I've selected the camera like that, and I've opened up the side panel so I have my widget, and now I can just move this kind of into place so I can see the face. Probably needs, what did I do there? Probably needs to be more straight on. So if we look at our camera, if we go hit 0 again, and we go to view and camera, we can select camera. What does that say? Camera to view. Now we can control the camera with moving around, normal moving around in Blender. Now this is probably pretty good for what we're going to use it, at least the angle. And now I'm going to unselect this, and it's kind of hard to get really close in, so this is kind of the best way I've seen. I need to change my transform orientation to normal. Now that will have me going straight at this straight angle with the camera, and now I can just zoom into the face and kind of go back and forth. Probably needs to be raised up a little bit too, but I'll wait to do that. I'll get this close up about right, and now I can just select this and raise this up. So I think that's probably a good shot for the face. And now we can start to create our first poses. So let's select one of the bones. Make sure you select off that camera to view. And if you don't want, it's kind of gaudy to look at the camera, you can kind of turn off the view of seeing the camera by unchecking extras, or you could do that in the side, in the outliner too, of course. All right. So now we can pose our character, and I already started on an quick animation, or one of the poses. So yeah, let's just do this one, and we have the animation tab on the side, and we should be able to just, well, what we want to do first is make sure we select all of the bones that we want to use, that we want to be saved here. So we've selected all the bones, and I'm, this is a full rig, but I've kind of isolated these bones, so I'm only seeing these, and, I can just select all of them with a box select. All right, so let's create our pose. Now we get an image here of the pose, and I don't know, that's kind of nice. Seems to be a little outside of what the camera was showing us. So we can kind of adjust that too. But as you see, we get the pose here in this window, and then we also have a version here. Now, there is a way to edit this now. If we go and select this gear box here, we should be able to edit this image that we're selected on. All right, so now, yeah, it looks like we're doing that. So if we go back to our camera, this image seems to be a lot bigger than what this camera view. Maybe it has something to do with some other settings, but real quickly we can just change that just by moving it closer. So let's select that. I still have that on normal view. Make sure if you change this to normal that you change it back when you go to do other things. So all right, let's see what that gives us. So I can now reset that view. We're a little bit closer. I think we could be even more closer. So let's go like that and redo it more. Yeah, because I only need the face for this. All right, I think I'm about there. Maybe I could select this and move that up slightly and see. Because I don't really need the forehead. So there. That looks pretty good to me. So now we can ignore that camera view. Did we turn it off? Yeah, it's off. Okay, we're just selected on it. All right, so now we can go through and make all of our other poses. Everything should look perfectly. And let's say I have another pose here for one. So that's slightly different. Probably could be a lot more different, and I'll probably do that. Yeah. So let's make sure we select all of the bones we want to save here, and then create pose, and there we go. We have a different one. So now we could, now that we have these saved, I could jump between these two. Also, renaming. So when you first create it, it will give you an option to rename it, but if you have this panel here, then you can just rename it here. So let's say, so for my purposes, this is high 1 pose. Yeah, high 1 pose, and this other one, I want to be high, maybe 5, high 5 pose. There we go. So now we have two different names, and I'm in this animation and it's supposed to be for this, but I could change this very easily just by changing the pose, just like that. And I could have, of course, more differences between those two poses. Looks like it's just the mouth on these two that I was working on. But I think that's a decent overview of this. There's one more step here. Okay, so how do you get rid of these poses? You know, let's say you made one and now you're like, I don't like that, so let's just get rid of it or whatever. Well, you can look at your poses within the action editor. So the action editor is kind of a subset of the dope sheet, but it allows you to have separate animations. Okay, I must have an animation on the camera now too, so I can easily get rid of that. But it won't update. It won't update in here until I save and restart. Okay, and the same thing with here. We can select on that pose that we made for the pose library, and we could alter it in here also. But then we also have whether it's viewable in the library. So if I select off that, now that's not viewable in the library. Okay. Now, and if I put it back on, it should become viewable. Huh, how did that work? You might have to make another one. So I don't know. I don't know how that works, but I think if I restart, it'll come back as a pose library asset. Maybe I have to resave it. I don't know. But there's also another way. So let's say you have this animation here and you want to totally get rid of it. Oops, that's the wrong one. So this one, because it has that F. And now, after I select it off, it doesn't have that F. But if I save, and then bring it back, where is my speech gestures? I could have swore I had it right here. Let me hands. Well, I can just oops, that's probably why. Close that, and then I can just restart Blender, and it should be the top one I have. Because I just made it. There we go. All right. So, and now if you see, it's still in there. And we still have this camera action too. So the only way I know to get rid of all that is to go to your linear animation and just make sure that all of, you can kind of delete all of this stuff out of the nonlinear animation window. And once you get rid of it all here, and also make sure you're on an animation you want to keep. Now when you save your file, and let's close that and reopen it, and there we go. And now those are all gone. So it's kind of wonky that way. I mean, maybe there's a different way to get rid of it all. I don't know. But that's a look at the pose library in Blender. Have a good one, everyone.